The first time I picked up a Wii U tablet, I was impressed by how hefty it was. In a world where so many gaming peripherals are lightweight, flimsy or brittle, the Wii U tablet was reassuringly solid feeling, without really being heavy. The Switch is the same, but in a different way. In handheld mode, the bundle was smaller than I'd expected. Even after watching all the videos and staring at all the photos featuring gloriously manicured hand models, the new addition to Nintendo's hardware family was still, somehow, not as big as I thought. It still felt right though, less plasticky and toy-like than I'd feared, and very easy to hold. Let's run through the hardware from the top, shall we? In the Switch box, as well as the various cables and plugs, you have 4 main parts. There's the Switch console itself, the Switch dock, and the twin Joy-Con controllers, plus the Joy-Con grip, which turn the Joy-Cons into a gamepad. The console features a 10-point multi-touch capacitive touchscreen, an audio jack, tiny stereo speakers, a USB port for charging, and a kickstand. And this is where one of the first glaringly obvious design flaws happens. The Switch has been promoted as something you can take with you to game on the go, something that means you can finally play Zelda on a plane, and something that doesn't need to be tethered to cables or a TV if you don't want it to be. However, like all battery-operated devices, you need to consider power management. And sure, while you can play games on the Switch while it's charging up via USB, no problems, you need to do that in handheld mode. The USB-C port is positioned in such a way that you cannot plug a cable in at the same time as using the kickstand. That means if you want to play multiplayer games away from the console's dock, you'll need to keep an eye on your battery life and maybe take a breather every few hours to charge them up again. And that brings us to our next point. The battery life on the Switch console is between 2.5 and 6.5 hours, depending on what software you're using. Something like Zelda Breath of the Wild will run for around 3 hours before draining the battery and requiring another 3 hours to charge up in sleep mode, although of course you can play while it's charging as long as you don't mind using the kickstand. There are other things that make this new machine less than perfect too. If you want to keep your Switch in pristine condition, you are going to have to treat this thing really, really carefully. Even putting the console into its own dock can scratch things up if you miss the USB-C plug and adjust your positioning even slightly. So far, most of the scratches seem to be on the bezel around the screen and not on the actual gameplay area, but it still means that that new console glow is worn away pretty quickly. The solution? Invest in a good quality screen protector. Some are licensed and some are not, and of course quality does vary from one brand to another. But speaking of stickers, the finish on the Switch console and the Joy-Cons is easily damaged by adhesives, so if you're the sort of person who likes to decorate their consoles by applying skins, try to hold off on this one. Another key part of the new console is, of course, the twin Joy-Cons. Believe it or not, they're actually pretty comfortable whether you're using them attached to the console or separately as either a gamepad or as individual controllers. They fit in my hands easily and all the buttons seem to be in the right place, except for maybe that right joystick, which is one of the perils of the multitask design. They're also quite intuitive to use and very responsive, until they're not. People have reported the controller responding intermittently, sending incorrect details to the console, or in some cases, simply not connecting. Nintendo has acknowledged the problem and responded to gamers, suggesting that if you're having connectivity issues, you should look around you. Ensure that the Nintendo Switch console is placed to minimize interference, says Nintendo. That means put the hardware out in the open and not behind your TV, near an aquarium, within a meter of another wireless device, or pressed against a large amount of wires or cables. Other things that might interfere with your gaming include mobile phones, laptops, printers, microwave headsets, and even USB 3 devices, so you should probably keep those out of the way as well. Despite all that though, the Switch is a pretty nifty bit of kit. Sure, there are teething problems with it, but that is par for the course these days. Most of the pressing issues can be fixed with a quick patch or two, and the good really does outweigh the bad. Overall, Nintendo has come up with a great little hybrid tablet that doesn't compromise on what really matters. And of course, what really matters are the games. Up next, we look at a few of the titles you can check out on your new console, including our surprising pick for the Switch must-have.
To Switch!